The second she realized this in her current state, lying in her sleeping bag, all her senses heightened. The crescent moon and blazing stars filling the sky amped up their vibrancy as if someone had turned the dial on a massive cosmic dimmer. Each blade of grass rustling in the cold breeze had a different sound as it brushed up against its neighbor. She could suddenly pick out the different breathing rhythms of her fellow soldiers, their snores and delayed exhales, the shifting of a leg beneath a sleeping bag, or a finger twitching against fabric.
Why? I'm supposed to be asleep right now, not revving up the 5 senses on overdrive.
Idina closed her eyes again and took long, slow breaths. In for a 4 count, out for 6. Putting herself back in that space made her think of Master Rocha and how incredibly bored she thought she'd been when she'd first started training with the man. Any 8-year-old could easily brush aside meditation and breathing exercises as boring and useless ways to start a martial arts background. Plenty of adults felt the same way. Master Rocha had a purpose for everything, revealed in its own time when all the other pieces fell into place.
He said I can tell my body to do whatever I want. But when I tell my mind to do what I say, and it finally obeys, that is mastery.
That memory made her smile, though it was quickly swept away by an annoying, loud bullfrog that had its territorial sights set on the unit's camp.
Fine. Telling my mind what to do. Shut up, mind. Go to sleep.
Her mind had other plans. A low pulse of light lit up the undersides of her eyelids. She tried to ignore it, but it repeated until she was ready to shove herself off the ground and throttle whoever had decided playing with electronics on a training exercise was a good idea. When her eyes flew open, though, Idina was no longer with her unit members. She wasn't even next to their camp or on the same elevated bit of ground they'd chosen for the night. She didn't think she was at the land nav site anymore, which made no sense. She tried to push herself up out of her sleeping bag, but that was gone too. Because instead of lying on her side the way she'd chosen to fall asleep, she was now upright, gazing out across a vast landscape below her in every direction. Everything was green. Not the verdant, rich with life green of New England in the summer and early fall, but the sparkling, glowing green of her lights and Lady Myrden's journal, and the 2 blazing, flame-wreathed eyes hovering bodiless 6 feet in front of her. The earth trembled and groaned, only Idina wasn't standing on the ground. She was miles above it, floating or falling, with no T-11 strapped to her back and no reserve chute on her chest. The rumbling all around her coalesced in a dark, bitter laugh, and the flaming green eyes flashed with more green light. It was so bright she would have flinched away to shield her eyes. However, she couldn't move.
This game amuses me, warrior.
Wind howled through non-existent tunnels around her, buffeting her face, arms, legs, back.
I will take so much pleasure in destroying the last of your kind in this modern age. Open the bridge, warrior. Invite me in. While you try to hold me off, I'm only growing stronger.
Idina started spinning, slowly at first, but quickly gaining speed. Or maybe the green-washed world around her was spinning, and she was held suspended above it all, unable to move or stop any of it. The only other fixed points were those flaming green eyes, growing and flashing with light and expanding to consume everything.
I can see you now.
The oak's world-shattering laughter echoed through her core, and now the sprawling landscape beneath her was nothing but curved streaks as the entire world spun out of control.
I see all of you, warrior. Open the bridge. Let me in!
Another brilliant burst of light pulsed from those floating eyes. Flames erupted in every direction, drowning out the rumble of the world crashing to its knees and igniting the air with screams of agony. Thick black smoke poured from the disembodied eyes, reaching toward Idina with hooked claws that shouldn't have been able to touch her, but were somehow so much more than smoke. They grappled at her throat, squeezing down and burning her eyes. If her body had listened to her commands, she would have fought off the cloying stink of burning hair and charred earth. She couldn't move. She was powerless. She couldn't breathe.